Hello everyone and welcome again to 10 Things About Writing. Today I'm going to talk about a much disputed subject, which is that of clichés. We are constantly told that clichés are a bad thing, and yes, very often they are. We tend to want, as writers, to avoid cliché. On the other hand, there is no denying that cliched writing can be very popular. Children particularly like clichés, and it's because we tend to gravitate towards what's familiar. And so the real trick is, when you want to be a writer for adults, is to look at what has been done too often in the same way and avoid it, while still staying on the side of what people can relate to. And this is quite a difficult thing. So I've selected 10 of my least favourite clichés, which I think we can all do with looking at and perhaps mostly avoiding. The first one is... this is one of my real bugbears, particularly in young adult fiction. The girl who is different from the others, but who actually turns out to be the same as everybody else. Different from the others has to be different. If you're characterising your girl, you can't just make her the girl next door and keep saying, I know you're very different, because it doesn't work, and it tends to make for very flat, rubbishy characterisation. The next one is, and again it's a young adult trope, the protagonist who describes herself while standing in front of the mirror. You want to avoid this one because it's become such a cliche that it's hilarious. Who looks at themselves in the mirror and thinks, ah yes, I enjoy having my luscious red lips and my long red hair and my breasts, which are just the right size. No, it's terrible. It's an instant put down the book for me, and I think probably for a lot of readers too. The next one is hair as a substitute for personality. I've seen a lot in recent young adult books of mad hair girl, pink hair girl, blue hair girl, pixie manic hair dream girl. Your protagonist has to have more than hair to characterise them, and I think some authors haven't quite understood this. The next one is for people, well-meaning people, wishing to ingest a little diversity. It's the gay best friend whose gayness is the only thing we know about them. If you are going to do this, if you are going to have diverse characters, then they need to be characters. They can't just be tropes. They can't just be put in there to tick boxes. It's a cliche. It makes for bad writing. It makes for annoying characterization, and it really doesn't tick anything at all. Same goes for the love interest, tacked on at the last minute, who isn't interesting. Not all fiction needs a love interest. I think actually sometimes it's more interesting when a fiction doesn't have a love interest for the main character, because it means that they have more agency, and particularly female characters with no love interest stand out mightily in fiction because there just aren't very many of them. Next comes Exposition Man, who says things like, as you know, Luke, we've been brothers for 20 years. Don't do this. Exposition and over-exposition is never a great thing, but you can sometimes see in mediocre fiction a character who has been just slid into the narrative just exactly to do this. You can do without them. They are awful cliched characters. They never stand up and come to life, and nobody cares about them at all. Next comes the hero with the dark secret. To be fair, there have been a lot of these in classic literature, but I think it's a trope that's beginning to be a little tired. From Mr. Rochester to Max in Rebecca, the hero with the dark secret is now getting to be a bit of a tired character, and the dark secret is never halitosis. Next, women who play with their hair. This is slightly related to the manic pixie dream girl hair trope, but women who are constantly flicking or curling or tossing their hair rather than actually doing anything interesting. We can do without those. I could quite happily never read another one again. And finally, the one that I hate most is the middle-aged, white, creative writing lecturer who sleeps with the gorgeous young female student. And yes, sometimes this does happen in real life, but mostly it happens in books written by middle-aged, white, creative writing lecturers. And again, if I never get to meet another one of these in the rest of my career, I will die a happy woman. If you're not convinced by all this, I have an example. I'm not using somebody else's work for this because it seems unfair, but I've written you an example just to show you how annoying cliches can be. You get the lollipop if you can spot them all. The bedside alarm rang loudly, wresting Lake from her fitful dreams of the devastatingly handsome and charming stranger she had met just the night before at a college party. For a moment, she wondered why she had been dreaming of him. With his tumbling locks of chestnut hair, his disconcertingly direct blue gaze, and his annoying habit of looking at her quizzically while brushing a stray speck of dust from the cuff of his expensive Armani suit, he most emphatically wasn't her type. She yawned, stretched, and with an endearing clumsiness made her way across the untidy bedroom to the mirror, where she studied her reflection. A heart-shaped face stared back at her, framed with unruly auburn curls tumbling across her vivid green eyes. "How I hate this ritual," she complained, tucking a stray curl of hair behind one elf-like ear. "I wake up every morning, yawn, stretch, scrutinise my reflection, for what? No one will ever notice me, for I'm not like other girls. Other girls are feminine and popular with the boys. I have only my gay best friend, who of course can never be mine." She sighed wearily and searched among the clutter for something to wear. "Thank goodness I don't care a jot about clothes," she exclaimed, selecting a pair of jeans and a man's shirt, which mysteriously fitted her better than anything else she owned. "Although I'm sure Carl, my gay best friend, would have plenty to say about that." Carl was Lake's gay best friend. Devastatingly handsome and yet mysteriously unattached. He was the one who took Lake shopping, listened to her, and stopped her falling over things. Did I say she was endearingly clumsy? Suddenly the phone rang. "What are you wearing?" came Carl's deep voice. "Oh, just jeans again," replied Lake casually. "That won't do at all," sniffed Carl. "Call yourself a heroine? I'll send an outfit round straight away. We have a new lecturer today and you'll have to be fabulous." Carl was convinced that his straight girlfriend was destined to fall for a lecturer. It happened in all their English set texts, and their creative writing class. Lake bit nervously at her full lower lip. "Oh, Carl, I don't know," she said. "I am not like other girls. I don't do glamour or romance. Besides, I'm so terribly clumsy that if I wore something frivolous, I'd probably trip over it and fall at his feet like an utter klutz, thereby making him realise that I am not only endearing, but also painfully sincere and refreshingly unsophisticated, unlike the brittle and scheming women of academia with which he usually surrounds himself." "Nonsense!" exclaimed Carl scornfully. "I'll be around in 2 minutes." 2 minutes later, Lake was again scrutinising her reflection in the mirror. She was transformed. A vision in cerise taffeta with curves in all the right places. "It's from my collection," Carl explained. "But it looks even better on you, Lake. Now, if you'll just tuck this stray auburn curl behind your ear." He stood back to observe her. "Darling, you look fabulous." "But isn't it a bit dressy for a creative writing lecture?" whispered Lake doubtfully. "Nonsense," repeated Carl, glancing in the mirror, where his reflection showed a young man of devastating good looks, with a boyish smile half hidden beneath a tumbling lock of unruly hair. "Besides, I've heard that this new lecturer is particularly hard to please, and looks upon his students as no more than mere modelling clay, to be forced into whatever shapes his twisted imagination can conceive. He also has a dark secret, but no one knows what it is yet." Lake's emerald eyes opened wide. "Does he also have an annoying habit of looking quizzically at you?" she said. "Tumbling chestnut hair, cold eyes, and a slightly crooked smile." "Yes, I think he does," said Carl. Lake fell over her feet at that, landing sprawled across the floor. "Oh, Carl," she breathed unevenly. "I feel like I'm in a story." I will leave you with that as an example of how not to write a romance, but how to use every single cliché I have read in the last 20 years of reading proofs. Till next time, bye-bye.